Thanks for tuning in. Another week of NASCAR and F1 coverage here on Mystery Caution. Don't forget to check out Prime Sports Network on Friday. That's right, Friday, because that's when we're going to have our starting lineup report following practice and qualifying for this Saturday's race in Daytona. So, unfortunately, we did not have a starting lineup show on Saturday night because there was no qualifying and there was limited practice. I know we had one of our viewers asked a question, and that's what I had to respond. Yeah, just in case you don't know, if we don't have any. Again, there was some practice speeds from the race, but there wasn't a full session, and there was no qualifying, so we're not going to do a starting lineup video whenever that happens. Anyway, we've got some F1 to talk about this week, and of course, another Daytona race, and then we're on to the playoffs in a couple of weeks. We're almost there, CJ.
Getting there, yeah. Finally excited for a Saturday night race. I've been waiting for this, it feels like, all season. We used to have more than one, but I'll take it. Looking forward to it.
And then we get another night race, even though it's going to be on a Sunday at 6 o'clock. And I believe that is going to be the last Sunday that NASCAR is not going to have to worry about the NFL. So I guess take advantage of it while you can.
We get the crunch, yeah.
Yeah, so that's at Darlington. Okay, so we have, and again, considering the rain out on Monday, that was just yesterday. So if there was a Sunday race, I don't know. I don't even know if the odds would have come out today. Maybe they wouldn't have. Who knows? But we were lucky enough to get the odds today, so that's why there is no interruption as far as us recording this show and to preview the race here at Daytona. And just do a quick recap of what happened. It was just a crazy situation because of the rain and the accidents. You know, a lot of the top cars got knocked out. And Tyler Reddick, who what was his average? His career average going into the race was like 25.1 or something like that. And
terrible.
He had never finished in the top 20 ever at Michigan. And he won the race. Good for him because he's been the hottest driver to not win a race. And now that's gone. So now he's just the hottest driver. And he's the top the point standings. How quickly that can happen.
Yeah, broke the Toyota duck at Michigan. Got the monkey off their back. It was a nine race streak, maybe 9-year streak, I think, from Ford or from the last time Toyota won. But we picked it. I mean, out of all the Toyota drivers, we both said Tyler Reddick was certainly one of the best to take that week, just based on his current trajectory. And 5-6 races, I think it was something ridiculous in finishing sixth or better, most of them being second or third place, finally getting the breakthrough to the win. He's certainly peaking at just about the right time. He's got to just extend that a couple weeks longer, but Tyler Reddick looking very strong.
Yeah, right now his run is 10 top 10s in the last 11 with 7 top 5s, 2 runner-ups, and a win. So that's pretty damn impressive, and it should put him in the lead, which he has. So good for Tyler Reddick. Not sure what his futures are. I'm going to check up on that. What do you think his futures should be?
At this point, I don't know. Personally, I'd want 10. I'm guessing it's probably 8.
And who do you think is ahead of him?
Larson and Hamlin, of course.
Just the two of them?
No, you probably have got Bell probably would be third, and probably Reddick fourth, I would guess.
All right, let's see what we got here. And there's Larson. Almost 4-1. Hamlin, same thing, 4-1. There's Bell, 4-1. We got 3 at 4-1. So the next will be Reddick.
If it is, then he's probably going to be as low as 6-1, which is even worse than I was thinking.
Is there anyone else you could think that could be there? I don't think Blaney will be there because they don't respect him.
I don't think Blaney will be there. I think Byron's been a little bit off, so he's probably not going to be there. I mean, unless they, yeah, there it is, 5-1.
Look how low those numbers. Look at
Lower
that.
than, way lower than I would take him at this point. It's still 2 weeks to go before the playoffs. Playoffs are a 10 race run. You've got to advance through every round. Not saying he can't do it, but at 5-1, he's a smaller team. Remember, he's got to keep up this momentum all the way through.
Blaney should be the next one.
I would guess Blaney next. Yeah.
Byron.
Nope.
And Blaney.
Still no respect. Well, even. Okay. I was thinking they would put him at 10 or 12.
All right, there you go. And there's the rest. True. What is Truex doing at 16-1? He's lucky he's even in the playoffs.
At this point, yeah.
Let's see. And then Keselowski, as far as some good bargains, you got Keselowski. I mean, at this point, though, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's possible. I mean, Buescher would be a really good bargain because we know he can get hot at this time of year. And, matter of fact, even this week, defending champ. I'd throw a buck on Kyle at 100-1.
On the past couple of weeks, the way that he's been running, yeah, for sure.
Okay, so we're going to get to the odds of the race in just a second. So, yeah, anyway, in general, what did you think about the race? Were you entertained?
I thought it was racing. I liked it. I would have preferred it be on Sunday, but aside from that, Michigan has a tendency of producing really good racing, and I think it's disappointing that we're down to one race a year there.
Yeah.
Certainly, when you compare it to other tracks, you can get side by side. It's wide enough to be able to use the entire racetrack, and the draft is enough that it pulls people closer, so you have some close racing. I enjoyed it, and you even had the element of strategy with the pit cycle as well. So I thought it was quite good.
Yeah, were we surprised about all the accidents?
Yes and no. I think if you recall when the first real race, I should say, of the new generation car happened, I want to say it was at Fontana, and we saw a lot of drivers losing control and spinning. I think the speeds at the track, coupled with the aerodynamic needs of this type of car, make it really tricky within traffic, and I think drivers struggled with that. Certainly tires probably had something to do with it as well. We saw some right tires go down for a couple people as well, so I'm not surprised that there were that many accidents. Kind of spices up the show as well too, so I wasn't complaining about it.
All right. And as far as the standings are concerned, the NASCAR playoff standings, so what are we down to now?
We are down to, we still have 4 spots open, 2 races left to claim them. So Martin Truex and Ty Gibbs looking very, very assured in terms of their point standings, though, as you mentioned, Chris Buescher, he's starting to catch up with Ty Gibbs, so he's only 23 points behind 14th there. But on the bubble, you've got Ross Chastain, who worked his way in, and Bubba Wallace just 1 point out in 17th. And then further back in 18th, you've got Kyle Busch, who's just shy of 100 points adrift.
All right, so there you go. See, they didn't have this last week. I don't know what the hell they were doing last week. They were asleep on the job. So we've got there you go. There's the way it looks. So Buescher's 16 up on Chastain. Is that how it is? Bubba's, what is this? Oh, what is this +1 -1 here?
They still have Austin Dillon in that. You got to take Austin Dillon out.
Okay. So it's down to these 3 here.
Yeah,
Truex, Gibbs, and Buescher.
Move your line down 1. It goes below Chastain when you take Dillon out, since technically they took away his playoff eligibility with that win. Yeah, they're appealing it, but for whatever reason, they're leaving him in this view. So if you're looking at it, if you assume Dillon's not going to win his appeal, which I'm not sure that he will, NASCAR is kind of a family business and they dictate what kind of happens. So I just don't see that being successful. You've got Ross Chastain 1 point up on Bubba Wallace, and Chastain sitting on the bubble.
There you go. That's probably what this +1 -1 is.
There you go.
Okay.
Yep.
So Buescher, he would have to. Well, first of all, he would, if someone on the outside wins, he's screwed.
If
Or is that
Buescher,
Chastain?
Chastain
Chastain would be the one.
screwed, barring whatever may happen to Austin Dillon. But I think Buescher just basically needs to concentrate on outscoring either Chastain or Wallace, whichever of those two guys end up making it in. As long as Dillon doesn't get his appeal, as long as Buescher outscores both of those guys through next 2 weeks, he's going to be pretty fine. He's got a 15-point advantage over Chastain, 16 over Wallace at the point. So that's like half the field, right, in any given finish over the next 2 weeks.
All right, so it's really down to the guys who are really sweating it out are Chastain and Wallace.
I think so. Yeah, Buescher will be sweating it through this week. He's got to actually make it to the finish and get some decent points. But yeah, I think Chastain and Wallace are the two that are not sleeping at night trying to figure out anything that they can do to get any kind of advantage over the other. And it's all going to come down to stage points. I mean, they finished side by side, or I should say nose to tail in the race on Monday. It's going to come down to scoring those extra points in the stages over the next 2 weeks. Yeah,
and really, so if with there being 2 more races, Buescher is it's Daytona. I just wonder. We don't know what his strategy is going to be. At this point, it just might be, well, if I'm going to get in an accident, I'm getting in an accident. I mean, it's all dependent. I'm going to just stay back.
He's good at Darlington too, so he could be pretty confident over the next 2 weeks. I mean, these are 2 pretty good tracks for him, for sure. But Wallace is good at Daytona. Chastain could pull something out of the hat as well.
We didn't get an opportunity because it happened after our show last week to talk about Austin Dillon.
Right.
So now
they did exactly what I said I don't want them to do. So the time to penalize him was at that race. They come back 3 days after, and decide to leave the win, but hey, we're not going to let you in the playoffs. So it's kind of rewriting the rules. I think it should be a prospective rule change, not a retrospective rule change. So I think Dillon should still have his playoff spot. I think they should think about how they word that section of the rule book for 2025 and beyond. But yeah, really disappointing that we've got officials interfering. And I know other people on the other side of the coin will be saying really disappointing that we've got somebody wrecking their way into the playoffs, but kind of is what it is until you outlaw it.
I don't know what you thought. Did you get a chance to see the Dale Jr. interview with Dillon?
I did not, actually.
All right, I'm going to play the audio. Let's see here. You know what? No, they're not going to. I can't believe that they would screw the. Well, you never know. So let's just play the audio. All right, let's see. I have to make sure you hear it too, since you didn't. Where are we?
I did see Denny Hamlin's text or tweet in response to Richard Childress Racing tweeting that they were disappointed that Dillon was penalized, and Hamlin responded with, "Not as disappointed as I was coming off of turn 4."
Yeah. All right, so let me know if you have a problem hearing this. All right, so here is the. Now, I just want to, because this is just a question. I think this is the. Let's see. I don't even remember what we're playing, but I wanted to play this, so let's listen to this. Wait, let me get rid of that.
The 11? Yeah. I think that
You can hear that?
I can.
Okay, so let's check it out.
He didn't care what happened to the 11.
To me, that's intent. Like, if you don't give a
yeah,
then you don't if you don't have enough care at that moment to take care of the driver next to you, which to your point is the code, right? You're not dive bombing someone 5 car lengths back. If you don't give a then that's intent. And apathy is the same thing. It's complicit in the court of law.
Yeah,
it's the same thing.
Yep.
And Denny's talking about, well, the line's invisible, but there needs to be a line drawn by NASCAR of like, okay, this is too egregious. He said it doesn't paint the sport in a good light. Did this cross a line, in your opinion?
Well, I think that it definitely crossed a line. It's a missed opportunity maybe for NASCAR to react in the moment. I'm hesitant to, what do you got to, NASCAR was probably hesitant to react because what are the dominoes and ramifications of what are the negative things, right? If they say, this isn't official, nope, you're disqualified, the winner is the 45, or in this case they have
11.
Denny,
finishing second,
right? What would have been now in the moment, fans might have been like, okay, acceptable. What is the long-term ramifications of that? Or, in the next moment when somebody gets slid up the track, where does NASCAR can't? NASCAR and drivers, the code of drivers is not written. It's not in black and white for you to read. It's just, hey man, treat me with respect. And so NASCAR wouldn't really be able to go. NASCAR likes to make rules that they can tangibly hold and feel, right? And so where would you say where would you stop at what's legal and not legal in those moments?
All right. So one of the things that, because I think we got it early on. Let me see here.
That's gonna really. I think the thing that's really tough for everybody is the 11. The deal with the 11. I mean,
what do you think?
One of the things that that was interesting is that everybody kind of seemed to give him a break on Joey Logano, because it was the second one, I guess. And again, remember we talked about this last week? Well, everybody does it. So I think they were kind of doing, well, everybody does it, but he did it again. But really, was he doing that on purpose? And they were going through and they were showing you saw that. They were showing all the replays and all the technology and everything. The thing I wanted to point out, and he said it a little bit earlier on, is that, let me get rid of that, is that Dale was very critical of Dillon in these comments. If you watched the whole interview, including if you watch this show and the interview, you see what I'm saying. Yet he wasn't critical to Dillon during the interview. He basically said he was wrong and then never said he was wrong to his face. And I don't understand why Dale would do that, because we all know how much Austin Dillon and all these drivers respect Dale. Does Dale understand the power he has, that he doesn't have to play nice? That Dale can basically, this is a great opportunity for Dale to maybe even just, be real. These guys, they're not going to say anything. They're not going to storm off the interview. They're going to be respectful. And it was a lost opportunity for Dale to do that, because not many people have that power that he has. And I was disappointed that he had a 10-minute interview, whatever it was, with Dillon, and he did not. He didn't put Dillon in a tough situation, basically.
Yeah, interesting. I didn't hear that portion of it, but he talked just in that portion that you played about the unwritten code and crossing it, and certainly, as you pointed out, being critical. So I'm not sure which one happened first, whether he talked to Dillon before this one or after, but
it was after.
Interesting. That makes it even worse then. So, I don't know. I wouldn't, Dale probably, he's a very humble guy, probably doesn't recognize the influence that he has over the field still, and probably tries to leave it up to them a little bit more. But yeah, you would think, that's something we talk about all the time, where we get the people that are on TV or promoting the sport, giving a different view of, the rah-rah type of view. They're not trying to avoid controversy and all that good kind of stuff. And it just makes for, a boring, bland, prepackaged product that nobody wants. What everybody wants is the controversy and people actually speaking their mind and going forward with their opinions. So Hamlin certainly wasn't afraid to share his thoughts. So interesting.
Yeah. Well, but that's again, it's too bad. But that he has a couple of co-hosts in the room that are that they're not old enough to really give Dale Jr. the advice that he needs. It's nice for what they got going on. It's fine, but to play big boy broadcasting, they could probably use a little bit more experience in that room with Dale. We had some viewer comments from I think this is the last week. Let's see. This was on Mystery Caution. SCole4519 was looking forward to this. Oh, he's basically commenting on the video we did last week. Was looking forward to this since the end of the race. I convinced my girlfriend to bet Dylan since that's her favorite driver. I wish I would have convinced myself. Anyways, what a finish. 30 yes, entertaining, hell yes. And then we also had Wayne Bilo 7845. Wayne's one of our better, more dedicated viewers. Wayne, thanks, Greg, as you mentioned at the end of your broadcast last week, and this was the starting lineup show, that Dylan didn't have a chance, but it should be worth $1. I won a bet. I won. I bet the buck and got $61.
It's a good return.
Yeah. So see, when we say bet $1, I'm not screwing around. I'm serious. Well, why not just throw $1? You never know. Probably got your money back. Let's see. Also, Joe Borbo 3340. Thanks for the video. My fantasy football league knows nothing about NASCAR, and we're picking racers to determine our draft order. Should be fun. That sounds cool. All right. So that's some of our... What's that?
That's a good way to do it.
Yeah, right? Keeps you entertained. Maybe they'll get some new NASCAR fans after that. That's how it worked for me. All right. So let's get into it. We've got a race at Daytona. I'm going to make sure I got the right one set up here. I believe this is it. NASCAR, the race. And the good thing about when they race at Daytona are the odds. Nobody's 4-1, 5-1, 3-1. The lowest you might get is 7, 8-1, depending on how they look in practice and qualifying and all that other jazz. Let's start just breaking down a couple of track trends and things like that, like we always do. So only 3 of the last 13 winners started inside the top 10. And that included starting positions of 31st by Stenhouse and 34th by Haley. No winner has started in the top 2 rows in the last 17 races. Wow. So qualifying, well, look, we know qualifying doesn't matter very much, but still, you would think on accident someone would be starting in the top 4 in the last 17 and win. No pole sitter. Do you happen to know the last driver who won a Daytona race from the pole?
I'm going to guess it's the guy we were just listening to.
Yeah. Back in 2015, the Coke 400. Dale Jr., the last pole sitter winner at Daytona. The last 4 winners, their average starting position is 20.2. So, and as far as manufacturers, no Toyota in the last 8. Denny Hamlin was the last to do it back in 2020 in the Daytona 500. Ford's won 4 of the last 7. Chevy's won 3 of the last 4. And this is only for your Xfinity gamblers out there. If you like to bet on Xfinity, keep this in mind. Chevy has won 13 of the last 14 races at Daytona in the Xfinity Series, including 6 straight. And Toyota's not only bad in the Cup Series, they're bad in the Xfinity Series. They haven't won a race since 2013. So I don't think Toyota's the way to go this week.
We said that last week.
Yeah, right. Remember, don't chase. You just you accept it. You go, okay, it's fine. You just stay the course because the odds are with you. But yeah, that would be crazy if a Toyota driver won this week too. All right, so William Byron won the Daytona 500 this year in a Chevy, even though he only led 4 laps. Matter of fact, Chevy had 4 of the top 6 drivers. Toyota had 4 of the top 8. No Fords in the top 8. But this is important for the Fords. Logano was the top lap leader with 45 laps before he crashed. And if you take a look at the Geico 500, the Talladega race, a Toyota driver did win. That was Reddick. But it was the only Toyota in the top 10. And John Hunter Nemechek, he led 20 laps, which was one of the better ones, another Toyota, but he finished 33rd. Ford, on the other hand, had 2 of the top 3, including McDowell, was the top lap leader at Talladega with 36 before he crashed. Logano was second most with 22. So I know Logano should be a tip-off of how much I think about him this week. But that's interesting. And again, I think that should not be surprising that Ford drivers are a pretty good bet this week. But anyway, what do you think about all those interesting historical stats?
Not surprising. I mean, Toyota's been really good, but their car hasn't been the best at linking up. So that's been some of their problems of recent seasons. Chevrolet's been fantastic by themselves. They've been able to race well, but for whatever reason, they kind of lose that handling in the draft, lose a little bit of the edge that they have in single car qualifying. So they're often able to lock out the front row, but not as frequently able to make it all the way to victory lane. Whereas the Fords, they just concentrate on that race handling. They're able to link up. They work well together. Remember, these are the races where the pit strategies coalesce by the manufacturer. So all the Fords will tend to come down to pit road at the same time. All the Chevrolets will come down to pit road at the same time. Same with Toyota. And Ford, just with a smaller contingent, more tightly knit, they've just got a better way of making their team get out front and hold off the pack. And that's why you had Joey Logano lead so many laps. With the starting position trends, though, we have started to see more of the crashes come from the front and pushing around the front. And that came typically with the stage breaks and the increase of aggression as you approach those, positioning for those stage points. It wasn't too long ago in years past where those crashes would break out in the middle. So you'd either want to be out front or you'd want to be at the back. Now, being out front doesn't necessarily guarantee you're not going to be in that crash, because as I've said, they tend to happen more at the front as people are jockeying for the lead and for those stage points.
Yeah, you bring up also a good point regarding green flag pit stop racing, because that's, to me, I think, obviously, getting into a wreck, pot luck, the biggest issue. But the second biggest issue for good drivers are the green flag pit stops, because it can completely ruin where you end up and you may never recover. And it's not like it was 15 years ago where you could go from 30th to first in a lap. You get screwed up even with 30, 40 laps to go, and then everybody's in their lines. You're pretty screwed. So
yeah, that's a good point too. The competition now with the current package is very tight, and you used to be able to make a dive bomb and pick up a couple of cars. You used to be able to have the where did he come from's on the last couple of laps, and you can't do that. You've got to be in position 30 plus laps prior to the end of the stage or end of the race, because you're only able, if you're lucky, to make one car passes at a time. It's much more challenging to move through the field now.
Okay, so here are the top 4: Hamlin, Buescher, Keselowski, and Kyle Busch. Let's see if someone else is 12-1. Nope. Okay. Well, wait a second. Where's Ryan Blaney? Okay. Anyway, so
again,
Hamlin, Buescher, Keselowski stay the same that I saw earlier, and Kyle has made just a little move up. All right. So out of this group here, I wouldn't go with Hamlin myself, because we've talked about this, and that is that you get drivers in these Daytona, Talladega races where they can go on little streaks. They're hot, they're cold, they're getting in all sorts of bad luck, whatever. And Hamlin just happens to be. Now, it may not be a bad streak. It could just be that all of a sudden with the next gen car, it's not the same, because Denny Hamlin in his last 5. not maybe a coincidence, maybe not. Since the next gen, he does not have a top 15 at Daytona. So I think that's important. Because, look, you just don't want to use this race. Even though you're getting good odds, you don't really want to use this race for the drivers that you would normally look at and respect on a weekly basis. Denny Hamlin being one of them. You would take Denny because he was really good at, and he still is, he deserves to be the favorite. But I think based on that little number he's going through, it's like an excuse for me to go, all right, I'll kind of pass on him this week. But Buescher and Keselowski, you've got the defending champ. You also have the second place finisher. So this is how it went last year. 1-2 Buescher Keselowski, big surprise, one pushing the other. But if you look at Buescher, he only led 2 laps in the race. And he was 18th in the 500 this year. Last year, he was 4th in the 500, led 32 laps. Won the Coke race, leading 2. Keselowski, with the next gen, has led 118 laps combined, including a second-place finish and a ninth-place finish. And the other 3 results were 2 crashes and a DVP. So those are good signs for the Keselowski-Buescher tandem. I might favor Keselowski just a little bit, but keep in mind he only has 1 top 5 since his 2016 win. That was in this race last year when he finished second. But here's another key of why. In his last 15 races, he's had 10 wrecks and a DVP. So if he can avoid it, Keselowski will be there at the end. And so I know they're a little bit more, especially with Buescher, needing to get a win. If he's in contention, Keselowski is going to do what he can to push Buescher to the winner's circle. So I think taking both of them may not be a bad idea, but I'd probably favor Buescher just a little bit because he needs it more.
That's an interesting point. I was going to favor Keselowski a little bit more because if he's able to avoid the crashes, he's almost always in the top 10. I think taking them as a tandem is probably the wise bet because, like I said, they're going to be coming to pit road. They're going to be doing similar strategies. They are going to link up. Racing at Talladega and Daytona now is more of a team sport, and Buescher and Keselowski certainly know how to play as good teammates, as evidenced by their finish here last year. So I'd probably give Keselowski the edge just a little bit over the 2 if you're just choosing one, but I would actually recommend taking both. Kyle Busch, the reason he's up there is because Richard Childress Racing fields fantastic super speedway cars. So he and Austin Dillon, that team ever since Dale Earnhardt has just known how to put it together at these tracks, whether they've sucked on every other track in the schedule. It doesn't matter. These 2 tracks they get. And that's why Kyle Busch is up there. And I think he might actually be a pretty decent play. I don't know if I like him as much as where he is in comparison to others right now, but 12-1 for Kyle Busch in a Richard Childress Racing car at Daytona is probably not a bad bet overall.
And they're all coming off good finishes. Kyle was 4th, Keselowski was 5th, and Buescher was 6th on Monday. And yeah, Kyle was 14-1 earlier this morning, and I really liked that, even though it's not a big difference. But I was like, you know what? How important it is. He needs a win. He's starting to. The team is making some moves here. Yeah, and he's only got 1 win at Talladega, 38 races. So that's not very good. But in the next gen, his average is 10.8, which is not bad.
That's really good.
All right, now let's move on over to the next group of 4. And we've got all 4 teams. Elliott, Wallace, Byron, Blaney. And out of this group, believe it or not, I'd probably go with Wallace. But Byron would, again, just out of this group, Byron would also be a contender. And I say that only because for Blaney, what I do like with Blaney is he's 14-1. So I think that's a bargain, and I would take him for that reason. I'm surprised it's 14-1. The thing I am concerned with a little bit, though, is he has wrecked the last 2. I know it's not his fault, but he was involved in wrecks the last 2 at Daytona. And he's no longer on that hot streak, which ended at the break. So he's come out of the break, and he hasn't had a top 10 in the 2 races out of the break. So that combination is like, well, I don't know. But at 14-1, I think he's a definite play because we just know he's one of the best at super speedways. But regarding the others, Elliott, I would pass on Elliott. He's never won here. But again, Byron, coming off a second place finish on Monday, won the race earlier this year and was eighth in this race last year. But the problem is he won earlier this year, and expecting him to win both races at a pot luck track those odds need to be higher probably than 14-1 for me. So Wallace is actually my top play out of this group. He has 3 runner-up finishes in his career of 14 races. He has an average of 10.8 over the last 6 Cup races, and he has an average of 10.3 over his last 6 at Daytona, including 5th in the 500. And we know, just said the same thing about Buescher, we know how important this would be for Bubba to pick up his first Daytona win.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you one bit. I think Wallace is the one of this group certainly to take, probably Blaney second, and then Byron and Elliott maybe an equal third in that pack. Chase Elliott, he's been, maybe it depends on where he qualifies. If he's not inside the top 10 qualifying, he usually finishes inside the top 10 here at Daytona. If he qualifies at the front, he usually doesn't finish at the front. So maybe look for him if you're thinking of going the Elliott route. Maybe look and see where he ends up qualifying, see if he focuses on his race car versus the qualifying machine. Wallace much more consistent though. Just out of the last 6 races at Daytona, he's only got, all of them were top 20s, which is kind of hard to do at a super speedway track, and just one of them was 20th. The rest of them were 12th or better, and 3 of them were top 5s. So Wallace very consistent. He knows how to race all the way to the finish at this track, and I think we've seen it a couple times. All he needs, and he would have a victory by now at one of these tracks, whether it be Talladega or Daytona, if he just had the luck and made the right move coming off of that last turn. He's been in position multiple times. No reason why he wouldn't be in position again at the end of Saturday night.
Yeah, the thing, of course, the biggest thing that I'd be concerned with is the fact that he's driving a Toyota. So that would be the biggest concern. But it's 14-1, and he is a desperate driver. And I wouldn't say don't take any Toyota drivers. We just, saw what happened on Monday. But just make sure that you pick and choose, and hopefully you get the right ones. Okay, moving on. Let's go down to this next group. Okay. Now, here's the biggest bargain so far, and he's still 14-1. But that's Joey Logano. So we just talked.
Don't even need to ask who I'm taking of this group.
Yeah. This is easy. So Logano has only won once, believe it or not, and that was back in 2015. But by the way, he's only led one lap. This is let's hold this because this is actually a positive, but let's keep in mind that he's been very inconsistent this year, and that's maybe being kind. If you just take a look at his results, they've been really, he's had a lot of bad results. He's very fortunate he's got the win. I'm not sure where he'd be right now. I mean, what do you think? Would he be like what Buescher is? Would he be or like Truex is if he had no win?
So Logano's got 561 points. He would be behind Wallace and Chastain, just ahead of Kyle Busch.
So he'd be really in trouble.
He would be in trouble.
Okay. But now all the positives. He's led at least one lap or more in his last 11 Daytona races, including 6 or more in 10 of the last 11. He crashed this year, as we mentioned, but he led 45 laps, which was the most from the pole. Last year, second in the 500, led 12 laps, 5th in this race last year, leading 9 laps. Nobody has these types of stats as far as lately and career-wise, the combination that Joey Logano has, and you're getting 14-1. So,
yeah, Logano's, in my mind, a must-play this week, whether it's these odds or in fantasy. He's just been so consistently quick at Daytona, like you said, leading laps and all the way back to 2019. At least one lap in every single race that he's been in at Daytona. Clearly the star among this bunch, 2nd and 5th before, and then in the 2 races last year, and then ended up on pole in February, but wasn't able to finish. Did lead the 45 laps, like you said, though. So Logano, the clear standout here. Larson, Reddick going back to back, he's very easy. Going to be very tough to go back to back. So I'd probably give the edge to Wallace again there. His teammate Kyle Larson, similar to Elliott and Byron, like we talked about before, very good in the single lap. Just doesn't have the luck to be able to get all the way through to the end of the race. Christopher Bell might be another Toyota to consider alongside Wallace, though. Christopher Bell has just been racing really well. Unfortunately, didn't have the luck yesterday at Michigan, but he's been racing really well this whole season. I think he's going to be very strong as he continues to build that peak up to the playoffs.
Yeah, remember, we have one of our handicapping rules is unless it's a bargain of bargains, we do not take drivers coming off a win. And that's held true 100% of the time this year. So even if it happens once this year, you're doing well. You're doing well for yourself, and so far it hasn't bit us. But yeah, so that's going to take Reddick out of it, and even though he has 6 wrecks out of 10 anyway, but and he's driving a Toyota. But the other thing is, check this Bell Larson comparison out. You have Larson was 34th on Monday. That's the 5th time he's been in the 30s this year. Bell was 35th on Monday. That was the 8th time Christopher Bell has been in the 30s this year. That's crazy. But Bell, if you're taking one of the two, you're definitely going with Bell over Larson. He was 3rd and led 22 laps this year, 3rd in the 500, led 20 laps last year. And Larson, look, how many times we have to, as you kind of mentioned, if you've watched this show long enough, you know we would never take Kyle Larson, or at least at this point in time, he's done nothing to convince us that we should ever take Kyle Larson at Talladega or Daytona, in which he has never won. Matter of fact, he does not have a top 5 in 20 career races at Daytona. I'm not even sure if he has a top 5 at Talladega.
I was just going to say no top 5s despite starting on the pole or the front row 4 consecutive times between 2021 and 2023. Doesn't even lead that many laps through 20 starts, just 31 laps led, especially considering that's terrible, especially considering 3 poles in a row as well as a second place start.
Okay, now here's the next group, all around 20 to 22. Truex is driving a Toyota, and he's got no top 5s in his last 12 on the season. Even though he has driven a little bit better lately at Daytona and Talladega, so and it was always surprising to us why he never was better here, but that's just not good enough. So okay, he's out. Bowman, though, even though his last 3 results here are not very, last 3 results on the season have not been very good. He was 2nd at the 500 this year, and in his last 3 overall, 2nd, 6th, and 5th. So that's pretty good at Daytona in his last 3. He also has 3 career poles in 16 races. So I like Bowman as a long shot. Gibbs, forget it. He's driving a Toyota. He hasn't shown anything here, either in the Xfinity Series or the Cup. And Chastain might be interesting. We know how desperate he is in getting a victory. And he hasn't been all that bad lately. He doesn't have a great career record here. But he led 14 laps this year in the 500. Last year, he led 6 laps, finished 9th, and led 19 laps and finished 17th. So he's led at least 6 laps in his last 3 Daytona appearances. He does have an Xfinity win. Never had a top 5, though, but he's a long shot. So I'd probably take Bowman over Chastain in this group as a long shot, but Chastain is more desperate. So I don't know, but those are the 2 I would consider.
Yeah, I would not take Gibbs or Truex. Truex can't buy a break for anything. Gibbs, 4 races, hasn't done much, just a couple of top 15s, if I'm not mistaken. Alex Bowman, really good and consistently in the top 5 recently. So that's definitely something to look at from him. Ross Chastain, I think, is going to be feast or famine. Either he's going to hit it and be up at the front, or he's going to be at the back and you're not going to hear from him all day. And I'm not sure what that's going to be based on his history here. What I do like about Chastain and why I'd give him the edge over Truex and Gibbs, though, really is the lap sleds. The last 3 stops at Daytona, he's led 6, 19, and 14 laps. So that shows that he's able to get to the front, but the finishes just haven't been consistent. Just one top 10 from that. So again, it's probably going to be feast or famine for Chastain. I think Bowman's your more concrete long shot bet here of this group.
I kind of get the feeling that Chastain, it's like not only feast or famine here, but sort of the next 2 races. That it's like he's either going to turn his season around or it's just going to be over.
Yep, I could see that as well.
Yeah, so we'll see. But at least it's a long shot number. All right. Still have some long shots here, of course. Not super long shots. You don't get a whole lot of them at Daytona. But you got McDowell, 22. Of course, he's the 2021 Daytona 500 champ. As silly as that sounds. You have another Daytona 500 champ, as silly as this sounds. Austin Cindric. He won it in 2022. So they went back-to-back years, obviously. So they've already won at Daytona once. But McDowell, he's more desperate. Cindric is in. McDowell isn't. So, McDowell is not the worst idea. Matter of fact, we talked about that lap deal with McDowell leading 36 laps at Talladega, I believe, earlier this year. Then you have Stenhouse and Dillon. Now, Dillon looks like he's on the outs, but, look, he's going to be with Kyle. Kyle's 12 now. Dillon's 30. So if they're together, if they're lucky to avoid crashes, it's just going to depend who's first. Nobody's going to give the other. Dillon needs it just like Kyle. So maybe if Dillon ends up first ahead and Kyle's got to push him, Dillon's got 2 wins at Daytona in this race, I believe. Problem is he's been really bad in his last 3 races at Daytona. But again, it's 30-1. Stenhouse might be another play at 28-1 because he has a pair of wins. Matter of fact, this is funny. McDowell, 21. Cindric, 22. And Stenhouse, 23. Those are, before this year, your last 3 Daytona 500 champions. But anyway, Stenhouse, if you look at him, he has not had some luck lately. 4 out of his last 5 have been wrecks, but one of those was a win, the 500. So, Cindric out, but the other 3 are not bad long shot plays. And I might actually throw a couple of bucks on Stenhouse and Dillon.
I would probably take all 4 of these guys over the last 4 that we talked about, to be honest with you. I think any one of them has the potential to win. They've all won. Dillon, as a matter of fact, might stand out the most just because he's won both the Daytona 500 as well as this fall race, plus the fact that he's won in the new car and he's won in the old car. And again, that just goes to Richard Childress Racing and their ability to field fast cars at Daytona and Talladega. So I think with the momentum that we've seen from the Richard Childress Racing teammates over the past couple of weeks, I think Dillon stands out to me. But again, I wouldn't hesitate taking all 4 over the last 4 that we just talked about. I think any one of these guys, Daytona is a gamble, Talladega is a gamble. You got to go with the long shots. These guys have proven that they can get it done. They might get caught up in a crash, but they just as easily could win as well.
Yep. All right. And then we go to Jones, Briscoe, Gregson, and LaJoie, about 35-40-1 group. Gregson was 9th earlier this year, led 5 laps. Also, I believe he has, he has 1 top 5 out of 4 in Cup, 2 top 10s, so that's a nice percentage. Also has a win in the Xfinity Series out of 8 tries. So Gregson's another nice little long shot possibility. Jones is driving a Toyota. He does have a win at Daytona. He's driving a Toyota, though, so I'm not really I'm probably going to skip him. LaJoie, though, we know he's, if you're ever going to take him, these are the races to take him at. He was 4th in the 500 this year. He's got a 13.4 average in his last 10 races at Daytona. That's pretty impressive. So I think he's worth, a buck or 2. And then Briscoe is actually another driver that I think you have to consider. at 35-1. If you take a look at Briscoe, who was 10th in the 500 this year, he was on the pole in this race last year and led 67 laps. That is a lot before he ended up in a crash. And he was 10th, as I mentioned. So his last 2 races at Daytona have been pretty good for Briscoe. So, yeah, I mean, I can hear you saying you go with all 4 of these again, just like the other 4, because you might be able to do that. But I'll eliminate Jones because he's driving a Toyota. Other than that, I think the other guys have better, at least, stats that I'm not going to worry about. I wouldn't care what manufacturer they were. So who do you like out of this group, number 1?
Honestly, I probably like Noah Gragson top. Corey LaJoie, very close second. Corey LaJoie he's got a knack for getting to the end, and he almost always finishes inside the top 15 here, and that's where you got to be able to be in position for the win. So he just needs a couple of lucky breaks. Was on his roof yesterday, so we'll see how he recovers from that. Noah Gragson, I think, though, he's from his Xfinity days, those seem to have carried over right into this series as well. I think it'd be really cool to see him up at the front again. So Hart says Gragson, Brain probably says LaJoie. So that's how I'll rank them.
All right. And then we move on to Gilliland, Suarez, Van Gisbergen, and Preece. And then you also have the rest: Berry, Hocevar, Burton, Hemrick, Hunter Nemechek. There's Haley, a winner of Daytona. You got Zane Smith, Austin Hill. Okay. So out of the rest of that group, the ones that stick out to me, I think there's only 1 or 2 of them that stick out. One. Actually, you know what? I'll probably throw a buck each on Hill and Smith, because Hill, even though his 2 Cup results aren't that good, that was back in 2020. So since 2022. He's got 3 Xfinity wins in 6 Daytona races. And so that's real important to note, that all of that happened after he raced here twice in the Cup Series. So he does not have a Cup Series, which I'm just shocked at. I don't know why it's taken anybody this long to put him in a Cup race over the last couple of years. But I think he's a no-brainer at that number. And Zane Smith's got the last 2 appearances for Zane Smith in the Truck Series. He's won this race. I know it's a truck, but it is worth something. And he was 7th on Monday, so that's got to give him some, feeling good about that. And in 2 Cup races, he's finished 13th in both, which is not all that bad. So yeah, out of that group, I'd throw a buck each on those 2 drivers.
Yeah, we just talked about his teammate, Zane Smith, as well, being able to find his way to the finish. So I completely agree. Austin Hill is just a spectacular super speedway racer. So I think he's one that could pull off a huge surprise. Same thing with Zane. Both of them extremely good. Smith with the team as well. On his side, I think both of those are excellent long shots, without question.
And by the way, Daniel Suarez has 3 straight top 10s in the Cup Series, and he's awful in Daytona. He's got 10 wrecks out of 14. Awful. But we'll keep an eye on him, because if he doesn't wreck, that would be a sign that his momentum is still going. And if he finishes well at Darlington with a top 10 or something, then I don't know. It's I'm sure his teammate would like to be doing better, but interesting that I'm not sure he's ever had 3 straight top 10s, to tell you the truth, in his career.
Probably not.
Okay. What are your picks going to be?
Oh, my goodness.
Potluck.
So my top pick we'll go with Keselowski as a top pick.
Okay.
My middle, Logano. And then I'll go it's going to be LaJoie, Hill, or Smith for the long shot. Let's go Zane Smith for the long shot.
Oh, okay. Very cool. All right. Since you took Logano, again, he'll be a no-brainer, but since you took him, I'll do Buescher. I will do I'll do Chastain. Why not?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll do Dylan. And if I wanted to do a long shot again, Austin Hill, I mean, is also kind of a no-brainer. So that's kind of, matter of fact, since it's a Daytona race, we'll give each of us an extra driver. So we'll give you LaJoy and Zane Smith.
That works.
And I'll go Dylan and Hill. Those are my other two long shots. So we'll see if we can cash in. And again, don't forget to check it out on Friday this week when we recap. I'm not sure what the weather is. I guess we should check and see if what the weather forecast is. Hopefully, the weather's going to be okay. And we will be on Prime Sports Network with our starting lineup video of qualifying and practice update. Take a look. Again, we're probably not going to have any odds to talk about, but we'll let you know what it looks like. Look, and the thing is Daytona, so it's just not really a big deal, but we'll report it and let you know what we if we see anything interesting. Okay, so that's NASCAR, and we do have something to talk about as far as F1 is concerned. It's been a while. They've been on a break, so let me swing into things here for the F1 and talk about the Netherlands. What is this? The Dutch? What do they call this?
The Heineken Dutch Grand Prix.
Okay, and we've had more parity in the F1 in the last couple of months than a very long time.
You're going to be shocked at these odds.
Wow. Look at this.
Yeah,
so you're getting plus
positive
on Max
Verstappen, and you're getting positive odds for Max Verstappen at his home track, despite the fact that he hasn't won, I think, since Spain, if I'm not mistaken, which is probably the longest Red Bull has been without a win for several seasons now. It's his home track. He's won every single race at this track from pole. It's going to rain over the weekend. It's likely going to rain all 3 days.
Oh,
and when you think about being good in the rain, there are two names that pop to the top of the list, and one of them is Max Verstappen. The other is Lewis Hamilton. So Oscar Piastri came up on top at Hungary. That's why he's moving forward. McLaren, Lando Norris doing extremely well, but the team, as we've talked about for a couple of weeks now, has been making mistakes on their strategies, as well as some internal fighting, as we saw at Hungary between Norris and Piastri. So I think with rain in the forecast, it being Max Verstappen's home race, I would kind of discount McLaren a little bit more than some other weeks, and I would give the nod as a favorite standpoint to Verstappen, but then Lewis Hamilton probably a close second.
Okay, so it's one of those races, and with Hamilton at 8-1, and there's a couple of drivers in between, this is actually a good way of hedging your bet. So you can go ahead and take Verstappen as your big play, and then if Hamilton wins, you try to get your money back.
Exactly right. Yep. Split your bets accordingly. Hamilton being the hedge. He walked into, or I guess inherited, the win from Russell at Belgium, but he's excellent in the rain, and Hamilton's been better at this track in particular, more so than Russell has anyway. So I think this is a unique track. This is not one that you can necessarily compare to other tracks on the course, because this one's shorter, it's twistier, it's got banked turns, it's got some elevation changes. It's just a really unique kind of roller coaster type of track that Max Verstappen has done extremely well at, and he has the boost of his hometown crowd, so that's all good for him and gives him extra momentum. But Lewis Hamilton's really been the one that's challenged him, and if there's rain, we know how good Lewis Hamilton is in the rain, so I would expect him to be able to be up there right with Verstappen fighting for the win.
And so Hamilton has 2 out of 3 on the season.
Correct. Yep.
So that's good. Yeah, I like that strategy.
And it's just last season with Mercedes as well before he moves over to Ferrari. I almost said McLaren there. Used to be McLaren, then moved to Mercedes. But yeah, Lewis Hamilton picking up the wins in his last season after a couple of seasons of dry spell while Max Verstappen dominated. This is a week, certainly. Can you scroll down just a little bit? I'm guessing Russell is probably third there. Yeah, a little bit of an extra bonus there if you want to go for Russell. But I think from a track perspective and his ability to get the job done specifically at this one, Hamilton a little bit better. And then when you throw in the rain, he just becomes all that much better. So all three, or 2 out of 3 races for Hamilton, he's been in the top 5 here. And then from a Russell perspective, as I scroll down here, just 1 of his 3 finishes in the top 5 here at Zandvoort.
Okay, so this is just really mind-blowing that we've been doing this all season. Maybe, look, we're fortunate because if we would have started talking about this 2 years ago, we'd be in a really bad way about it, trying to find out ways to handicap F1 races. So luckily, we haven't had to wait too long. And it's really cool that this is happening, and we'll see because really, if you think about it, if Max is going to, and you know he will, you would guess, if things are going to turn around, this is a perfect spot for him to turn around.
Coming off of the break, yeah. So this could be another weekend where teams bring upgrades to their cars that kind of change things around. Red Bull doesn't have as much room to do upgrades. In fact, I think they even said or alluded to the fact that they might already be at the ceiling of the current design that they have, so they might not have much further room to grow. But Mercedes, boy, have they been coming on strong. And I was talking about them as they started to show signs of that. I think at this point they've probably eclipsed McLaren, and maybe if McLaren continues shooting themselves in the foot, maybe they would have been a little bit closer to Mercedes. But it seems like Mercedes has got the edge, and Ferrari, as a matter of fact, is slipping away. So we'll see what kind of upgrades they try to bring here over the next couple of weeks. Can't really do much over the past couple of weeks because of the break. All the shops were closed, so it's not like they can go testing or do any kind of wind tunnel work. They literally have to go on vacation. All they can do is mentally think about, in McLaren's case, how do we not screw up the strategy? It's really just a mental game at that point. So we'll see what the teams bring this weekend. I would expect Ferrari to start swinging because they've been losing ground, but I would say Mercedes probably closest to Red Bull at this point.
All right. Now, let's take a look at, I've recommended anybody out there that hasn't signed up for the Prime Tire Athletic newsletter. You might want to do that. Let's just take a quick look here. I guess they had some mid-season rankings, if you want to call it mid-season. I guess it is. So what do you think about these rankings? So we got Red Bull at A-. You've got McLaren A, Ferrari B, there's Mercedes D for Aston Martin. There's a B. B plus for Haas. There's another D for Alpine. It's Williams. F. So what do you think? Anything stick out there with those rankings? Those grades?
I'm surprised Red Bull was an A-, to be honest with you. They went from dominating to not winning a race for several months here. So I might put them more as a B plus. I think the expectations are high for them, and they certainly started the season with the best car. So I would replace their ranking or their grade with the Mercedes grade, because Mercedes had lower expectations and they've turned things around and have actually caught up. So I would put Mercedes probably higher on the list, maybe give them the A, maybe an A plus. Maybe A plus would be reserved for if they were completely dominating, and they're not completely dominating, so we'll give them an A. But I would knock down Red Bulls probably to maybe a B.
All right, now here are the rankings, driver rankings. So starting with 21, And does anything here pop out to you with these drivers?
Our friend Kevin Magnussen in 18th there. Is that due to his penalties?
I almost rated him higher for his fun, if illegal, defense at Miami alone.
There you go. Yeah. I don't see anything that's too surprising there. I might put the Haas drivers a little bit higher. Kevin Magnussen, he's playing to the team. It's a team sport in Formula One. We talk about it all the time. So Haas is trying to do the best thing to help them score as many points as possible. So I would give Magnussen a little bit more credit there. I don't know that I'd rate Alonso where they have him, because it's been more of an Aston Martin problem, more so than a Fernando Alonso problem. Perez probably could be at the bottom of the list for me, because he is in the best car on the grid, and not able to do anything with it. So,
all right, and then here's the rest. Alex Albon 10, and we got 9, 8.
Hulkenberg, a Haas guy, good to see him up there.
7.
Interesting. I would put, Sainz is good. Where's Leclerc? Why is Leclerc not scrolled by yet? Interesting. Yeah, I'd probably put maybe Sainz and Hamilton up there with Leclerc if you're going to put him fourth. That's a little bit surprising. I think Sainz has been the better driver. He's also been under more pressure, so a little bit more difficult for him to perform too. So Leclerc has been pretty comfortable at Ferrari. His future is safe. Whereas Sainz is a little bit more uncertain. So he left for appendicitis, came back and won. There's something to be said for that.
All right, so that's the biggest one then for you.
Yep.
Okay, so those are, again, we have a link in the description area of the video, so you can check that out, and gives you a good idea. And again, it's for free, so I think it's definitely worthwhile. So again, especially over the last few months. Matter of fact, one of the other top 10 lists they had were, what was it? It's I think turns. It was I think it was turns. Let's see. Yeah, some of our favorite F1 turns are on the way. So what do you think about let me pop that up. Turns.
Gotta be on here.
They don't have them listed. They don't have them ranked. They just have their favorite.
Yeah, Zandvoort with its banking and with it's got a couple of really cool turns. They compare this track to a roller coaster, and it's been around for a while. It's been on the series, been part of the series dating all the way back to 1952, but it's only been recently part of the schedule again, starting in 2021, and it had stopped being on the schedule in 1985. It's a compact track. It kind of weaves its way through sand dunes on the shore of Holland. And the banking on some of these turns are just astronomical. More banking than the 4 turns at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in these. So we're talking about a really cool track. It's a driver's track. Not the best from an ability to pass and being a wide lane and all that good kind of stuff. But it's an entertaining track to watch. Verstappen's got it down, and that's why he's certainly my favorite here at his home race this weekend. But definitely should be on there from a turns perspective. Monza, great, super fast track. Azerbaijan is rapidly running up the favorites list because of its backtrack. It's got the castle turn, so you do a quick little left-right thing through right next to an old castle. You could basically run the car into the stone of the wall there. Not sure I'd put Singapore up there. Not sure I'd put the USGP up there. I think that we got some other tracks that are a little bit more entertaining than those, like Belgium. I think Spa's Eau Rouge, one of the most famous corners in all of racing. And then even at Monaco, you've got the Casino Hairpin. That's a really fun one to watch cars get side by side in as they try to yank the turn, the steering wheel as far as they can to be able to actually get the car around the turn, let alone do it side by side.
Did you ever put lists like that together for F1?
I think I have in the past. Yeah, not recently. There's a bunch of new tracks, I think, since the last time I've done it. But yeah, Eau Rouge always going to be at the top of my list. Casino Hairpin going to be near the top from a Monaco standpoint. And since, as I mentioned, Zandvoort just coming back within the last 3 seasons, it's got some really cool ones as well. So if you've never watched Formula One before, this is going to be an entertaining race to watch just because of the track alone. But then when you add the rain on top of that, it's going to make it a really interesting weekend.
And then what we got right and wrong in 2024, trends we hit on, Oscar Piastri's rise, Mercedes Renaissance.
We were on that.
We missed. Competitive resurgence, yes. And we're all happy that he missed. There you go. And you can check out all this, which is most of the stuff that we just talked about here, by ordering. Again, go to the description area. You can click on the link. And if you don't even know where that is, just hit the More button. The More button sends you to the place where we have a lot more information, including the link to sign up and get this free newsletter content at The Athletic. All right, so next week it's Darlington, and then it's off to the playoffs. So can't wait for that. The playoffs begin with a crazy race in Atlanta. Matter of fact, the Atlanta race comes on the first full Sunday of NFL football. So it's going to be a really fun time covering everything. We still have, 10 races to go in F1?
10 races to go in Formula One, including Holland this weekend. Yep.
So, and then it's going to be two a break. Are they doing that, or that's how it's going to be?
This weekend we've got Netherlands, as we mentioned. The following week, next week, we'll be talking about Monza in Italy, the fastest Formula One race all season.
All right, excellent. So that is going to wrap it up. Don't forget also when we have our video that comes out earlier. I don't know what time. Probably going to be somewhere around mid to late on Wednesday for the NASCAR coverage. You can check out the link that we're going to provide you, and that's going to show you exactly where you can go to read the NASCAR Fantasy Report at rotowire.com, care of CJ. So that'll be for our videos each week for the starting lineup. And then F1, of course, nothing we can do there except what we'll do is later in the week, we'll try to put a link in the description for the NASCAR race. So you can just check it out there since we don't have any other F1 videos coming up later in the week. So we'll have an F1 and a NASCAR link to CJ's reports. You can catch that on the video page for our coverage for the race starting lineup in NASCAR. And that, of course, in Daytona. I checked the weather, by the way, and there's going to be thunderstorms, 70% chance on Friday. So hopefully we'll get the video in.
The chance lowers when you get into the evening. That was the one saving grace. I looked it up while we were talking as well, and I was dismayed. But the chance does go down as you get into the night, and it is a Saturday night race. So hopefully we can get it in under the lights.
Yeah, So the race itself, the thunderstorms percentages were definitely lower, which was nice. But Friday, it looked like it was like more than a good chance that it's going to rain and a thunderstorm. And the thunderstorms, too, that's the thing that really kills you, because they could delay it even though it's not raining. And then you're waiting, and then you wait, and then all of a sudden it starts raining and all that other stuff. But anyway, the bottom line is just keep that in mind, that it's possible that if we do have thunderstorms, we will not have a video for our preview, our starting lineup show on Friday night. And it looks like it's going to be at qualifying, I believe, is, where does it say? It's Friday. I can't, where's the time here? Is it 2 o'clock? Qualifying impound. Does it say 5 o'clock? 5 to 6:30? Maybe that's what it is. NCS. Yeah, I think that's what it is. Okay. Yeah. So that's a 7 o'clock. So hopefully, as you said, later in the day, because I guess do they have a night race in Xfinity Series that on Friday night?
They do. Friday night at 7:30, Xfinity will be taking off.
Okay, so we'll see what happens. But again, if there's no qualifying, then there's no show. But either way, thanks for joining us once again here on Mystery Caution with CJ Radoon of RotoWire.com. We'll see you next week.